Hello, I'm Bhaskar Chakravorti, Dean of Global Business at the Fletcher School at Tufts University. I'm here with Mads Kyed, who is based in Germany, and he is involved in Nikama, which is a software development company, and he's also connected to a university in Germany. He's a professor at the university in Germany. And Mads, the reason for our conversation is I wanted to get some background on the work that you have been doing with your team in Germany and the software development and other technology work that you have ongoing with professionals in Ukraine. We want to understand the relationship between tech professionals in Ukraine and their clients abroad. And you have quite a bit of experience on that front. So I wanted to understand what kind of work you get done in Ukraine with your partners there, and how has that work changed in the last 2 months since the invasion began?
So my company develops software, and the main part of the software development process takes place in Ukraine, in Kiev. We develop software, and we also run the software for our clients afterwards. So there's a lot of maintenance work also involved. The impact on our daily business has been surprisingly minimal in the last 2 months. So during the war in Ukraine, the internet has been up and running at all times. Of course, we have for security, we have moved some servers to Germany, but it wasn't, at the end of the day, really necessary, because at no point was the internet connection disrupted. In our line of business, when we can communicate, when we have access to servers, to internet communication, we are basically up and running. So technically, infrastructure-wise, there has been surprisingly minimal impact on our business. Of course, in terms of human resources, it's another matter. Obviously, as in the first part of the war, when Kiev was the focus of the Russian invasion, a lot of a big part of our group moved to the western part of Ukraine in order to be safe, of course. Another part of the group stayed in Kiev. Interestingly, even the guys who stayed in Kiev have stayed online. The infrastructure was at no point, even for the group in Kiev, interrupted. The group that went to the west had also did not have any problems. So even though the group was split up, we still was able to function properly. Of course, so just on the purely technical infrastructure level, surprisingly little impact. Of course, on the human level, I'm sitting in Germany. My friends in Kiev, it's different. It's a difficult situation. You feel helpless sitting here in safety, and so on a psychological level, of course, there was an impact on our working relationship. But on a technical level, as I said, surprisingly little impact.
So what were some of the risks that you were most concerned about, and how did you get a sense of confidence that those contingencies or those risks would be managed?
First and foremost, risk. The risk from our point of view was the safety of our programmers. Mm-hmm. As I said, part of the group moved from Kiev to the western part of Ukraine to stay safe. At no point did they leave the country, though. So, of course, risk-wise, the biggest risk was and is still that something will happen to our programmers. Business-wise, of course, there's also some a higher level of risk, of course, involved when I get in contact with new clients and try to convince them to let us do some software development in Ukraine. Of course, it's now a different scenario than 2 months ago. So the risks were very much in the beginning, and of course still are there now. If the human beings in Ukraine, our programmers, will be able to go to work and to function. Still, of course, a risk also. Will the war impact the infrastructure? In our line of business, this means internet communication. So far, there has been very little impact, but still, of course, it's a concern of ours. It's a risk at this moment. Yes.
But so far, it's been good in terms of at least the connectivity and the productivity of the teams that you've been working with in Ukraine. Is that right?
That is right. We have been able to service all our clients fully during the last 2 months. So we have had no disruption. So in terms of productivity, we've been good. Of course, there is a risk that this will not continue, but I'm not so worried now as I was in the beginning, I must say.
Sure. So in terms of where you go for programming talent, Mads, what is the reason for going to Ukraine versus a number of other places you could go around the world for similar talent? Is there something special about the group in Ukraine?
We went to Ukraine 20 years ago, more than 20 years, in fact. So we have spent a lot of time there in Ukraine. Even back in the 90s, Ukraine was a center for software development. It was back then a place where you could find exceptional talent for and of course back then in the 90s, in the period after the fall of the downfall of the Soviet Union, the newfound independence of Ukraine, there was a lot of availability of very talented people. There was in Ukraine, in Kiev, there was a lot of high-tech development going on back in the Soviet Union days, and then you had the revolution, the independence, and of course a lot of people who used to do high-tech work in Soviet military industries who was now looking for new jobs. So back then it was an excellent place to find a talent available, and yeah, just a fantastic place really if you were looking for highly talented engineers, programmers, mathematicians, you name it, the kind of high-tech people. So of course we went there end of the 90s, beginning 2000, 2001, and immediately found exceptionally good people, and we've worked with them ever since. Of course, the Kyiv, Ukraine, has matured a lot since then. There's a lot of development, and now it's a modern European, Kyiv is a modern European city, and the new generation of tech people, you know, the young guys who are now graduating from university, they are really international, European. They can speak English or other European languages, and they are now basically just like every other young people who graduated from universities all around in Europe. So that was a bit different in the 90s. Talent was there. Now also you have the mentality of the people being part of Europe. I would say that's my experience.
Yeah. So that's really helpful, Mats. And I guess one final question for you. You obviously have a long history, working with programmers and other collaborators in Ukraine. What message would you offer to someone or an organization that is looking for tech talent, and they have an option of going to a few other places, other parts of Eastern Europe, maybe, or maybe India, or some other parts of Asia? Why should they come to Ukraine if they don't necessarily have the history that you have? But are there particular characteristics of the Ukrainian talent pool that you would care to call out as distinctive, and perhaps a reason to maybe even overlook some of the risks that are obviously still there in that part of the world?
Well, as I said before, one of the advantages in Ukraine today is that it's mentality-wise, and that's the important thing here. We're talking about human resources. It's fully integrated into European Western style of thinking, of doing business. So
could you just elaborate on what that means? What does that, in terms from a practical standpoint, what does that mean for you?
Well, if you have a software development, that's my business, of course, project. You have, if you have, I mean, that's my experience. Typically, a client, an industrial client in our case, in Western Europe or in the US, who go to us for a software development project. They have certain expectations on the analysis that you make before you start developing software, and during the software development process, the communication that takes place between the client and the software developer. And this is what I mean about the mentality. So if I hire a Ukrainian software developer, he would he already knows the process, or he will go to the client and analyze the client's business structure in the same way as a software developer I would hire locally here in Germany. It's the same mindset of these two people. So when they are finished with their analysis, I have exactly the same result, be it in Ukraine, from the Ukrainian or from the local German developer. Of course, technically, you find excellent people all over the world, but sometimes when you send a young developer, technically brilliant, you send him to meet a new client in order to analyze the problem of the client. He needs to, in order to be successful, to pick up a lot of things when he's visiting the client. What is important in this business of my client, and all of these small things. That's the question of mentality, that you are able to pick up all the right things when you go and visit the client. So you put that into and when you put that into your analysis, you get a result that satisfies the client. This is my experience. You can do with Ukrainians. They deliver exactly the same result as if I send a Ukrainian to a German client, as my local German developer would do. That's a huge advantage. I don't have to worry about say any cultural differences. They immediately pick up on the right things. So that's one thing, of course, and then the fact that they are exceptionally talented. That's also my experience. Again, very, very pleasant and wonderful people. Is all the years I've worked with Ukrainians, on a human level, absolutely fantastic people.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. Yeah. So I know it's a little bit hard to pinpoint exactly what I mean by mentality, but it really is this picking up the small things that you miss if you are from a completely different background and you go to a client in a very different environment. You sometimes get lost. The Ukrainians, they don't get lost in here in a European or American environment, so say Western style. What we Western is of course also a little bit ancient description of our part of the world. I'm not the youngest anymore. I remember when the world was divided in West and East, but yeah, you can they mentality wise are European, Western. That's one huge advantage.
Great. Well, Mats, thank you so much for sharing your perspective. This has been really enormously helpful. I think I get your basic message loud and clear, which is that the benefits of both the technical talent and the fact that the Ukrainian talent pool, at least the ones that you have interacted with, have a mentality and a mindset that is consistent and compatible with your expectations and where you're coming from in Europe is enormously important. In many ways, outweighs the risks that are currently still present in the country. So I really appreciate your perspective, and thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. This is Bhaskar Chakravorti, Dean of Global Business at the Fletcher School at Tufts University, signing off. Thank you.